6 p.m. in the Warren G. High School cafetorium with live stream available at warrencityschools.org. This meeting is a meeting of the Warren City Board of Education in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business and is not to be considered a community public meeting. There is a time for public participation during the meeting as indicated in agenda item number 11. Meeting's called to order. Mrs. Scortino, would you please call the roll?
Here.
Mrs. Amparas?
Here.
Mrs. Patterson?
Mrs. Patterson will be a few moments late.
Mr. Walker?
Present.
And Mr. Fowley?
Here. There's no need for an executive session at this time. Would you all please stand to salute the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Mr. Shiro, any communications?
Yes, I have a few brief communications this evening. First, this is the second week of 2 weeks of our Summer Bridge program for students across the district in grades K through 12. The program is ongoing. It's providing small group instruction across all grade levels and multiple subjects. It's being offered in all of our buildings. Kindergarten through 5th grade is at the pre-K through 8 schools, and 6th through 12 students are here at Warren G. Harding High School. Also ongoing is our extended school year program for our students, the extended educational opportunity, and that's hosted here at Harding High School. They've consistently had over 100 students with disabilities participating, with more than that invited on a regular basis. Once these programs conclude, then Harding High School, as I provided in our weekly update a couple weeks ago, will go into our traditional 20 days of summer school for courses that are being offered to our students in the district. So that is the educational opportunities being offered at this time. Inspiring Minds will begin next Tuesday across the Warren City Schools district. Additionally, staffing is in process. As you'll see on the agenda, we have a number of individuals that have been recommended for hiring. We have a number of individuals who also have resigned across the way seeking other employment opportunities, and we look forward to your approval of those recommendations. And then lastly, I just want to make a brief mention that we've been receiving our title funding allocations have been coming in through the CCIP and through email communication from the state. Most notably is an increase, significant increase in our Title I funds. At this time, it appears that we will have an increase of allocation from last year to this year, totaling $2.4 million. So that is a very significant increase, and we've seen slight increases in most other fund balances coming from the state or federal programs. That concludes my communications for this evening.
Thank you very much, and it's always wonderful to have such a positive communication. May I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved. Second.
Thank you. Mrs. Scortino, would you please call the roll?
Mrs. Amparas?
Yes.
Mrs. Patterson?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mrs. Doherty?
Yes.
Mr. Fowley?
Yes. Mrs. Scortino, the treasurer's report.
I don't have anything tonight. We'll be meeting on the 30th to do the final budget and next year's budget, so you'll hear from me on the 30th.
And I'm sure it will be extensive. Thank you. Superintendent's report.
If I could make a comment on at the tail end of the treasurer's report, the Board of Education meeting scheduled for June 30th will remain here at Warren G. Harding High School, will remain at noon as this time, but it will not be in the cafetorium. It'll be moved to the library. Latoya in the treasurer's office will make a note of that later this week, all to the appropriate individuals. But we would still meet at noon on Thursday, the 30th, here, but in the library.
Thank you.
Thank you.
On to the superintendent's report. If I can have a Board of Education member so kindly read the resolution of condolence for Verna J. Wiley.
Mr. Walker, as she was your principal.
Resolution of condolence, Verna J. Wiley. It is recommended the resolution listed below, extending the sympathy of the Warren City Board of Education and the Superintendent of Schools to the family, friends, and co-workers of Verna J. Wiley, be approved as submitted. Whereas the death of Mrs. Wiley has brought sadness to this school district and the many people with whom she worked. And whereas Verna was employed with Warren City Schools from 1958 to 1987 as a music, elementary, corrective reading teacher, and reading coordinator. During her time with Warren City Schools, she served as principal for the Garfield Elementary, Lincoln Elementary, and East Junior High. Mrs. Wiley returned from retirement to serve as staff development specialist for the district. Her love, commitment, and dedication to the district and the children and staff of the Warren City Schools will never be forgotten. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board President, John Fowley, Vice President, Regina Patterson, Board members, Jenna Doherty, Patricia Lampiros, and Julian Walker, and Superintendent of Schools, Chief Executive Officer, Steve Shiro, express their condolences to the family and many friends, and be it further resolved that this message of sympathy be spread across the minutes of this meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Walker.
Second.
Mrs. Scortino, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mrs. Lamperos?
Yes.
Mrs. Patterson?
Yes.
Mrs. Doherty?
Yes.
And Mr. Fowley?
Yes. Mr. Shiro, we have a report from Akron Children's Hospital.
Yes, at this time, I would have some very exciting news that we would like to share and communicate with the board and with the community, and I'm going to turn it over to Dante Capers, Associate Superintendent of Student Services, Student Success, and Wellness. Mr. Capers will be introducing our nurse practitioner that will be joining us next year and talking a little bit more about the school-based health care and health clinics in the Warren City Schools. Mr. Capers.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Shiro. As you all know, we're blessed here in Warren City Schools to have some outstanding community partnerships with organizations that have a strong interest in the wellness of our children. None of those organizations are any finer than Akron's Children's Hospital. We've been working with them for the past several years to increase access to nursing services in our schools, and as beneficial as that has been, it is just the beginning. So I'd like to introduce Allison Lance, nurse practitioner with Akron Children's, to share more about some of the exciting things that are coming down the pike here.
Thank you, Dante. My name is Allison Lance. I live locally. I've been working for Akron Children's for 14 years, the last 7 in downtown Warren across from the local library. So I know a lot of these families. I'm very invested in the community here. This is my dream job, and I'm so excited to bring the school-based health center to Warren City Schools. So this is a program being funded by a grant through the Ohio Department of Health, and it's a one-year grant that we hope to show improved outcomes and be able to continue for the kids here in Warren as time goes on. So I just have a couple quick slides, and then I think you also have a handout of some of the most frequently asked questions, and then I can also answer any questions you might have. So the team that we are bringing in through the ODH grant is myself, a nurse practitioner, another registered nurse, which is a clinical coordinator. So your registered nurse that you have now, Janine, who takes care of all of Warren City, she's still going to be here doing her same exact job, but there will also be somebody else helping with the school-based health center. We hope to bring a social worker in as well, who will not just be with Warren City, but with the school-based grant. And we have a medical assistant who will be working with us. And so we're hoping to bring like immunizations to the kids will be able to get in the schools so they're not missing school because the immunizations are delayed. Another thing is we'll have a whole telehealth equipment system. So if I'm at Warren G. Harding that morning and there's a sick child at McGuffey, I would be able to look in their ears, evaluate for an ear infection, look in their throat, all of that from Warren Harding, so that just because that child's at McGuffey that day doesn't mean that they can't be seen by the provider. So we are very excited about this program because, as you know, there's many barriers to healthcare. We want to be a medical home for kids that don't have any medical home at all, and then also connect them with community resources outside of school. One thing that kind of highlights what this program will do, right now, if you are on Medicaid and you need a ride to your appointment, you have to request a taxi for that ride 3 days in advance. So if the child is sent home from school on a Monday with a fever and mom calls Tuesday for a taxi, that child might not be seen until Thursday or Friday. They've missed the whole week of school. They've delayed their antibiotics or whatever care that they might need, and they've been out of school. Whereas if on Monday that child has a low-grade fever, I see them. I see they have strep throat. We can call mom. We sent amoxicillin to the pharmacy. If you could grab it on your way home from work today, you know the child's missing 1 to 2 days of school and right back in school. So that's what we're looking to do, is provide access to care. And in the past, I know there was concern about other pediatricians in the area. They will still see all of their patients. We will refer them back, but it's the child who doesn't have access to care or has a barrier to care, or their parent isn't able to get off work, or so on and so forth. Basically, to just help everyone in the community, the families, the children, to be able to stay in school so that they can get their education, because we know how important that is. So we're just looking to partner with you guys in that. And then we're going to be looking at different quality measures throughout the year. Did attendance increase? Did nurse visits decrease? Were we able to get kids back in school in a shorter amount of time after they were sent home for a medical illness? And so we're looking at those outcomes to see what happens when we bring this program into the schools. Ohio is actually a little maybe behind or just late to the game. There's school-based health centers in schools across the country, and they've had incredible outcomes. So we're really excited to bring that to Warren City schools. So the launch date is August 1st, with the term through June 30th, 2023. And as I said, we hope to show good outcomes and have renewed funding. And then they printed out for you guys a quick question and answer sheet for some questions you guys might have, or the community might have, of what is telehealth, how do I give consent for this service, what kind of things are you going to do there, things like that. And then if there's any other questions or anything I could answer for you, I'm happy to do so.
I have a question.
Yeah.
What about physicals for sports? How are we going to handle?
I'm so
Is
glad
that-
you asked that.
Yeah.
Because that came up in our conversations last week with Mr. Capers and our representatives from Akron Children's Hospital. In the room was more than just Allison and Janine. And it's our expectation that Akron Children's Hospital is delivering the physical service rather than the football coach. And again, we were looking at football for the season. Well, Coach Arnold already had the physicals done in April. So we have to set the expectation. I've already communicated with Mr. Nicholson the expectation, as well as him to all of his coaches, and we're looking that would be the primary. Now, again, any family is welcome to take their child to get their physical anywhere they wish, but this is our partner. And again, when we're talking about this grant, we're talking about 4 individuals coming into Warren City schools every day. Okay, we're talking about Alex. Our trainer is already a free service we receive from Akron Children's on our other grant, which Janine, not grant, but our the program that Janine oversees as a school nurse coordinator. So we have a tremendous amount of support from Akron Children's Hospital. There is no reason why we can't offer that type of services to our students. If that's billable or not billable, depending on the level of service, that's to be determined, but that should be provided.
So one thing that would be different than just a single person coming in and doing the sports physicals, what we hope to add to that is that when they get that, if they're a 16-year-old boy, they might not have anybody talking to them about the 2 vaccines that they need at 16 years old. They might not have anybody asking about, drug and alcohol history. Are you struggling with depression? They're simply just getting a sports physical from that person that has no relationship with them. So what we want to do is have that relationship. We're actually taking care of the whole person and doing, what we would call a well visit with a sports physical, where we're addressing all of the child's needs in that one visit. Because if they get their sports physical at Warren Harding by someone else and they're never asked any of that, then they're not going to their pediatrician to have that well visit. So that's what we're trying to bridge that gap, so that we're taking care of their mental health, their physical health, making sure they're up to date on vaccines, and really caring for the whole child.
Thank you very much.
I believe I heard you say in the beginning of your presentation, the hope is that some of our students who don't have primary care practitioners, that this could serve as their primary care provider.
Yeah, so we could be what we call in medicine like their medical home. So if your child, goes locally to Dr. Guru, that's your medical home. You're going there for all your medical needs. But there are children in the community who don't have a medical home whatsoever, and so we would want to be that medical home for them. And then connect them with local pediatricians, during summer months, after hours therapies they might need, all that kind of stuff like in the community.
And so what would be the cost to families?
So most families are going to be billed through their insurance, and it would be the same as a copay for a visit. But with the grant, Janine, I might be speaking, I'm not sure, but I believe they'll all be billed through their insurance, correct? And they'll also give a consent at the beginning of the year, but then before each visit, they'll also bring them in, they'll write the consent and we can see them if they're sick or something, but for well visits, we're calling the families. When we have a sick visit, we're calling the families. This is, we want a great communication between the families and the school, kind of like wrapping around those services. So it's not just like, I went to see the nurse today and this happened. Mom already knows that we saw your child and this is the plan and this is, what we did at school today and what you can do to help support that at home.
And just to be clear, this is completely different than the school nursing program we have in place. Child goes to the school nurse. We don't do permissions. They're sick, they go to the school nurse. They have a fever, cough, go to the school nurse. This is a different level of care that is being offered across the district for students. So it's almost like we have the nursing services that we provide because we recognize our students need that degree of nursing services day in and day out consistently throughout the school day. And this is the other layer of healthcare services through the ODH grant.
So we'll still have nursing here, school nurses, here at Harding in addition to this service?
At all of our buildings, we will have our RN and LPN staffing levels the same as we have now.
Okay.
So this is all in addition to, it's like two different contracts, but this one doesn't cost us anything. The other one, we pay for the nursing services, to make sure that our children are well cared for and safe during the school day.
Excellent.
And if I can say a couple other points to this, again, this is completely grant funded, and I have confidence and I have a belief that this is something that will continue to rise and grow. I know this is consistent with Governor DeWine's work that he wants to do in schools. I had the opportunity to talk with him briefly on Sunday, and Mrs. DeWine. This is the direction for which he wants things to go. As the board knows, the Warren City School District has had a great relationship with the governor's office over the last several years, and we want to keep that. Oftentimes, we're looked as far as what are we doing and what do we need and where do we want to go, and then you magically see grants that appear in that direction, and we are consistently part of this process. So I can only say it's one other way. This is and has been part of the plan. When we changed nursing services 7 years ago, this was part of our plan. It's just how do we get to this point and getting the, this is a multi-million-dollar grant. Janine, is it, if you guys remember, is it 10 million or 25 million? Not for us, but for maybe it's 10 million for 25 schools across the state. And I don't have that in front of me because this has gone through months ago. But this is exactly where we want to go based upon the needs of our children.
Very good.
Is there any other questions?
Other questions from the members? I have a single one. Let's say a child, sometimes children come to school in spite of all odds, and they'll walk into you and they need a cardiologist or a nephrologist, and it's apparent to you, but they've been gaming it out. How do you make that referral and accomplish that?
So we would make the referral the same way we do at the office. We would let mom know we've referred them to this service. We'd like them to be seen. A lot of our specialists with Akron Children's come locally to Warren to kind of combat some of those barriers. A new program that we have through Akron Children's that we're doing with a lot of our specialists is something called an e-consult. So a child comes down with like a rare skin condition. I'm not sure what it is, or I know that they need escalated care to a dermatologist. we can take a picture of that, send that to the dermatologist, ask them to give us their recommendation and maybe get the child in sooner. And within 24 hours, that specialist has put eyes on that situation and given us a recommendation back, which is really huge when you're thinking these families, we're either sending them to Boardman or Akron if the specialist isn't available in Warren. So having someone already, know about them, follow up with them, having our social workers making sure they have a ride there, things like that, it's just going to take away a lot of barriers to care and get them seen quicker to who they need to see. So those referrals they'll still happen, and we'll try to use local because of a lot of barriers with transportation and things. But then we also have the ability to do these in additional e-consults and things that really help families be seen quickly.
Thank you very much.
I haven't met some of you. My name is Janine Fitzpatrick. I'm the district nurse with Akron for Warren City Schools with Akron Children's Hospital Schoolhouse Services. I oversee the 5 buildings, and I've actually been in Warren City Schools for a long time, even prior to when Akron Children's received the contract. But I wanted to piggyback on something that Mr. Walker had asked regarding the continued nursing care in the clinics. The nurses we're all staffed the same as we have been. And what this, just for an example, how wonderful this program is we have several students with asthma who maybe have barriers to transportation. Maybe they live with great grandma and grandma can't get them to the doctor. Or they might go to the emergency room or urgent care. We actually have several children who, instead of going to their primary doctor, will go to just urgent care or the emergency room, which they're being treated that one time, but then there's no way to ensure that they're getting a well child checkup, that they are maintaining their asthma well. So in this particular case, if they have no primary health care provider, we were referred to Allison, and she can get on it, see that child, and we can have wraparound services to help that child get better, stay in school, and ultimately improve academic success. So
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you both very much. Business office updates. Mr. Lacey.
Yes, at this time, good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
I would want to say, as I see Ms. Doherty up there, I think slightly chilly. And this is probably a little warm for Mr. Shiro, but we are in the process of...
Oh, why? I'm wearing 3 layers of wool.
Yeah,
what's everybody's trouble?
Mr. Fowley has layers, yeah, so like a record will show. We are in the process of replacing our boilers here at the high school. This will help provide a better overall airflow and capacity for the building itself. So yes, for about the last couple of weeks, since temperatures have shifted, we are aware that it has been a little colder than normal, but the end result will be very positive.
Mr. Lacey?
Yes, sir.
I hate to interrupt, but did Sue Kindleberger thaw out from the alumni event?
It is still being spoken of, I know, in certain circles.
But not to you, because she's not speaking
right,
yet.
no.
Okay.
Before I call up and have our update on the Wellness Center, I did want to give an update on the a couple of other things that are a little faster to go through. One would be the Raider Park project update. The Raider Park folks have come up with the necessary funding to complete the portion of their section of the pouring of the concrete and such. So if you happen to look outside when you go by, there will be, it's changed dramatically. It's much more basic than what, probably 100 times more basic than what it was initially. And I think it's actually done very well. So what you'll see if you go look at it is the remaining pieces that will be done is there will be individual pavers that will be put into the form, and the form that will make up the kind of the overview of Warren Western Reserve High School. It'll all be ground level, so it won't impact any of our ability to do anything. And then once that portion gets done, they'll complete the sidewalk portion that we were going to initiate. So that has kind of shifted. I would think they will like to do a groundbreaking at some point once Mr. Shiro agrees to that and dedicate that project. But I think it is very tasteful and very appropriate for what they were looking to do. So,
with that in mind, Athletic Council's this Thursday. Mr. Nicholson, can you add to the agenda, if it's not already on there, to discuss the Raider Pride Park? Because I would like input from the Board of Education members that sit on that committee as far as having any kind of groundbreaking, if the board wants to be involved to do that, or if you wish to let them have that opportunity, whatever. Let's talk about that on Thursday. Okay. Bill, will you put that on the agenda, please? All right, thank you.
Okay. The second item is the Warren Harding facade, where the main porch and the new drain into the porch is complete, and they are now completing the sections that would lead into the two doorways, and the steps would be the final items. So that's moving pretty quickly, and I think would be, if everything goes appropriately, should be here a couple weeks. And now at this, any questions on those two projects that you guys have? Now at this time, I'd like Kim Phillips.
Can I interrupt one more time? I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
I meant to do this under communications, but this falls under the business office. I just wanted to clarify. Mr. Lacey, I was reading the newspaper early this morning. When the Tribune posted late at 4:30, I've asked for it to be at 3:30, Bob, if you could help me. But the Tribune posted 4:30, and I read this article about the council meeting and how Mr. Lacey has met with Councilman Ron White regarding the proposed project at Seacrest and putting in a track. And Mr. Lacey is going to be discussing with me, and I'm going to be making a recommendation to the board regarding that. If you saw the paper, you would have read that.
I did not see it. Okay.
I'm not making a recommendation to the board. Mr. Lacey hasn't talked with me. I believe he has met with Mr. White. I believe Mr. White may have spoken out of turn, because I'm confident it was reported as it was put forth.
Yes.
I'm sure it was reported with integrity.
Yes.
I'm being serious. But if there is such time we would discuss that, we would discuss that. We're not having that conversation at this time.
Thank you.
Just so you guys know. For those of you that read the paper, I see some of you did and some of you didn't.
I did.
Yes. Any questions on that, please? Yeah, feel free. But
I had a busy morning. That one missed me.
okay.
Mr. Lacey, before Kim and company start, were there any material delays for the facade porch
Yes.
that you know of? There were? Okay.
Yeah. Essentially, yes. The limestone was one of the major delays.
Vermont now has a shortage of limestone.
It could.
Okay.
Yeah. There's some other limestone projects going on too, I'm sure. But the initial. So as I asked Kim Phillips and Joe DeSalvo to come up to give you the latest update on the Recreation and Wellness Center. Also, if you go past Woodland, you will see where Miller Yount has basically finished kind of the culvert work that was required by the city of Warren to allow that to become a driveway. So my last conversation with Dave Grayson last week was that he will have his concrete person pour the pad and then asphalt the rest of that. So time-wise, that should work pretty well into any of the student programs we have going in as the project starts to move forward. Then we should be in good shape. So gentlemen, if you would come up and give us your presentation.
Good evening.
Good evening.
If I start to mumble, tell me, because I have a tendency to do that. First thing I'd like to say is I think it's a great idea that you've hooked up with Akron Children's as far as the wellness aspects for the school system, and it kind of feeds into the overall project that we're here to, one of the things to discuss tonight, and that's the kind of the view or the preview, if you will, of the new 128,000 square foot recreation and wellness center. It has grown since first contemplated, but it also now is inclusive of many of the other offerings that have been discussed and that we'd like to present, and I'll do that. And we're continuing to proceed with the drawings, as you well know from our previous discussions. And there's also under consideration tonight what we called the early site package to get things rolling. But once that gets rolling, the project is going to run. So with that said, you can see here just the kind of the cover sheet. This is a small snippet of what it's really rough on an inside view, right? It's just kind of our sketching of how this is kind of going to play out. But we'll get to the pretty pictures, and you have copies of all of these slides on your table there, as well as some of the renderings of the exterior. As you can see in this slide, what it is intended to do is show you the size comparison relative to the existing high school. We all know that the existing high school is a rather large facility. Well, so is this. And again, it's the 128,000 square feet encompassing the building and the programs on 2 floors. That's the total on 2 floors. And what it is intended to do is have a direct access from the existing school building, multiple locations along the athletic wing that accesses from the school directly into the facility. It further has 2 independent public entrances, for the lack of a better term, one on east and one on west sides, so that the main entrance and the main parking and so forth would still be utilized near the main entrance to the school. So those are our access points. The other situation that occurs is, as you know, if you stand out there when you leave here and you look at the height, the elevation of the football field, you'll notice that you've got about a 4-foot differential in grade, about what you're looking at now between my level and yours. And so what we're doing with that transition is we are going to be transitioning from the interior of the main wellness center building through a set of stairs up to the locker room facility that will then have the football teams be able to exit directly out at football field level, if you will. Okay? So that is basically the site plan. You can orient yourself. You can see the current softball field that's here now, and the football field, and the existing parking, just so you can kind of acclimate yourself. On the plan, Elm Road is to the left side of your plan. Laird Avenue is up here where I'm at, and Atlantic is to the top. Let's look at the first floor for once, and let me walk this through it with you. Main entrance lobby off of Elm Road, again, is here in the upper left-hand corner of the plan. As you enter this lobby, there's going to be one set of 2 of what we call study stairs. Now, I don't know if you've been familiar with what that is, but basically it's a set of steps that goes upstairs, regular steps, right? But the study stairs are also items where they are oversized steps. They're big seats that the kids sit on, and they can lounge and study and converse with each other, that type of thing. We have one in the main lobby area that then leads to what we would best call, I'm calling it the lounge, but call it whatever you want, which you see here in the pink color. Place for gathering. I envision this building, as well as all the wellness activities and athletic activities are going to occur, kind of a student union, if you think about it from a university or college perspective. Things where kids can congregate and interact with each other. Things that a lot of the kids in the system probably don't get access to that much, but this will give them that opportunity to kind of see what it's like, if you will, and experience that type of thing. In the darker pink or orange or whatever color it is, we have a bistro. What's a bistro? Well, a bistro is going to serve two purposes. One is obviously the students can hang out there, get something to eat if they want, that type of thing, but it's not meant to be in competition with the food service activities here. But it also can serve as an opportunity for enhanced, and Steve will expound upon it a little bit maybe more, the enhanced educational opportunity for food service related type jobs later on, certification, that type of thing. So that's going to be available. There is an interested outside company that is, I'm sure, going to be heavily involved in the development of what that bistro is all about. You'll see the 200-meter track. That was the driver of how this thing got to the size. 200-meter track is 200-meter track. Got to enclose it somehow, right? So to give you a little bit of a sense also, even though this is not the focus because we already have multiple basketball courts, it does encompass size of 3 basketball courts, no problem, right? The track also has a 60-meter straightaway, which is going to give the opportunity for the track kids in January here to not have to wait for the weather to break and be able to run at 10 degrees, right? As we move further down, we have an area here that's really kind of undesignated. A lot of this, as we've kind of talked about this, a lot of these spaces, they're labeled, but they're kind of undesignated as we develop the wellness approach and the opportunities we want to provide the students, right? And so that's a very flexible thing, and I'm sure the opportunities and the offerings today are going to be different in 10 years based on how the whole program develops. So it says outer track, but anyhow. So to the north of this is where the locker room facility is connected to the stadium, right? It's right where the band shell is now. Okay, so where are we going with the band shell? Well, the band shell is planned to go where the abandoned, unused soccer booster facility is right now in the, what would that be, the southeast corner of the football field. It probably shows on the site plan, but not on this. So we've got the 2 locker rooms, home and away. Attached to it and associated with it is also a band changing room, and we have a door here. You'll see, what's that door from the visitors' locker room to the band changing room all about? Well, we thought a couple of things when the idea of a potential female football player might come to pass by either the visitors or by the home team, right? Or by Harding. So we've provided that for the female football player and utilize then the coach's area with its attached restroom facility for the Harding female kicker or whatever she would be, right? So we kind of tried to get that in the mix too, but basically it's really utilized for the band changing for the majorettes and so on and so forth. Then you've just got some associated storage and things like that. As you were to think about the existing high school, you'll notice that we've taken what is now a underutilized multi-purpose room, and we're going to convert that into giving the opportunity for an esports room, an official esports room. with 25 locations at this point, and associated simulators for the golf team to practice there as well. Just to the north of the golf. Now that's in the existing multi-purpose room that we're going to improve in the school. Right outside, that's your second set of study stairs. And all of this area, all of these areas are accessed from the main high school. So you can literally walk in the middle of January from the high school through the facility up and out onto the football field if you were so choose, all enclosed. To the east of what is currently the auxiliary gym, in gray, is the robotics facility, the robotics addition. We had initially contemplated the ability to take the auxiliary gym and turn it into robotics, but then the auxiliary gym would disappear, and so that was probably, it was kind of a space idea, but not a good procedural idea from how things are working. So we're not giving up the gym. We're adding on the robotics area, which is all set size-wise for competition. It is also directly accessible for the trailer. So the white trailer that's sitting out back over here is now going to be inside. So, that won't be there. And all of the machinery and storage and everything else that Frank has kind of spread out. I think there's some behind you guys, if I'm not mistaken, or at least one of the stages, right? Associated with that, as we then head further east, on the first floor, are 2 spaces for potential clinic partners for the school system, which would be what we're planning to do right now in the design and construction documents right now, is we're creating 2 black boxes, if you will, right? They are no gravel, no concrete floor in them, no plumbing, no electric, nothing. It's all just roughed in, because the clinic spaces, depending upon what they want to do in there, can really change in how complex they get or not, right? So they'll be totally enclosed. They'll be all ready to go when the time comes. Now, hopefully it's just in concert as an ongoing thing with the schools. Separated by that is their own vestibule. We've got elevators on both ends of the building. So we've got 2 elevators, 2 fire stairs, and this vestibule then is accessed from the east end athletic parking lot that's there now, right? So we'll have a drop-off for patients at the clinic, so on and so forth. The hours can be different because we're divided off. So if the wellness center's open, the clinics are closed, we've got that situation covered. So I'll speed this up. Second floor, mostly wellness. If you think about it in 2 terms, first floor is more geared toward student activities and athletic stuff, right? The wellness area upstairs still has a 3-lane walking track to create the donut, but upstairs it has multiple fitness areas, yoga areas, sensory type areas, meeting rooms, some offices, a little bit of storage, but this and the cardio areas are all along both the north and east ends. So it is full fitness and wellness oriented space on the second floor. And then you'll see in the lower right, really with the exception of the storage for the robotics, it's just roof. It's first floor roof, right? So we have done that. On that page, you can read the different things that we have designated for the different levels. And that's the Elm Road look. We have taken a contemporary approach, obviously. It is a play on some of the colors of the existing high school. But to be completely honest with you, I'd seen about enough brick. So we're going to go with some other metal panel materials and glass, obviously glass area. So this is the look. This is the look you'd see pulling in to drop the kids off in the morning at the main entrance, because the main
You can
entrance
see
of the high school.
the band shell.
The main entrance is currently right here, right? We're connected to the existing high school. And you can see in the distance. Yeah. There's the band shell in the corner of the end zone. Another view. This is a bird's eye view, which we'll never have unless we're up in a hot air balloon or something like that. But this gives you the view from the stadium side. It also kind of, with the cross bracing and things that we've put in, also kind of speaks to the W that Warren is all about, right? It's more structural, but it comes out that way. Sounds good. Night shot from the field. Figured that this is a view that we will see at some point during the football season, right? And every night. So it's not fully lit. It's more backlit for the aesthetics, but it'll be quite an active place. You'll see here, this is the locker room end. Those are glass block windows just to get light inside, so no big deal. This is what you might call the Laird Avenue side, or the east side, the clinic side. With the two clinic areas here, the lobby that is there. And right, there's the band shell roof right there. And the end of the place.
It does exist.
And so that kind of gives you an overview of what you've been hearing from various sources, what I've kind of given you previews at different points. But this is the direction we're headed, and we want to share in the experience with you guys, making what I think is really kind of a state-of-the-art approach, and kind of something that is going to make everybody in Warren real proud, I think. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ken.
Thank you.
You've kind of seen it. A couple of things that Steve and I kind of found out as we kind of went through this process. The first thing was the band shell. We had it set that it was originally going to stay in the same place. And Kim, we went into a meeting with Kim, and he said, "No, I just want you to look at this and don't say anything until you look at it." And as you can kind of see with the dynamic of the building, looking at it from the stands, keeping the band shell where it was just kind of blended in with the building, and it had a W on it. And it just didn't. And then when he set it apart, and you could still see it from Atlantic Street, and now you can see it from Elm Road. Also, it really popped. I mean, and
you can see the W design that's in the structure of the building.
Yeah.
yes,
Like it was meant to sit that way.
So that was really the first thing. And then the second thing that Steve and I kept doing as Kim and then Joe would start talking about these different areas, and above the locker rooms, we're going to have what we're going to call a green roof. What does that mean? Well, automatically now I'm ready to open up a horticulture lab again and any botany classes. And, Mrs. Hartzell's been on me for that for quite some time now. And as you see, some of the things that we saw on the second floor that are meeting or office, we don't know. I mean, because we feel so strongly about the wellness portion of it, that That is, though, definitely going to be the second floor, and it just kind of evolved into that. The other items, as we've looked at, are, again, providing our kids an opportunity to experience not just sports, but other activities, extracurricular activities, that they would not have the opportunity to do either because of the socioeconomics of a lot of our families, transportation lacking from a lot of our families, and the finances. So the ability to expose a child to esports, robotics, golf, tennis, and growing plants on campus. It's just endless, and we have been really taken by that.
You know, Mr. Lace, you mentioned growing plants today. We ran into a teacher at Willard when we were going around the building today, and we noticed that there were, in some of the islands in front of the building, there were plants that were recently planted. I'm like, oh, with the days coming, we have to make sure that they water these, go around. I went to the back of the building, and one teacher goes, did you see the plants? The kids were so excited. They loved it. They went, and then along the back, they planted sunflower seeds along the Falley fence line. You know, the one Mr. Falley talks to me about so often.
Yes.
So we have sunflowers that were planted on the inside of the fence. In the front of it, they planted flowers and did some gardening on the front of the building. And the kids loved it as part of some of the activities they did today. So there is so much need, and this is breaking down the barriers and obstacles that exist in the lives of our students, just like the folks at Allison from Akron Children was saying. You know, the whole idea is, you know, with their point of care. Well, this is point of care in education. And our goal is to get as many students involved and engaged. You know, our band program, we're trying to get increased numbers in the band program. Well, they're going to be practicing, you know, instead of 7:15 in the morning out on the field, they can practice inside in when the weather's poor, or in more climate-controlled conditions, or whatever the case is. We're trying to tap as many students as possible. Hospitality management is a seal towards graduation for our students. That's the idea of what we're going to grow for students in industry credentials, which I know, you know, we're putting a strong emphasis on. You know, how many children can we touch or tap here? And that doesn't mean students just at Harding High School. Mr. Lacey needs to keep getting bus drivers so we can get students to come here, not just for a swimming program, but how about other programs here?
That's right. Absolutely.
Our focus is obviously high school, but once we get that, how are we going to get our K-8 students engaged?
So with that, I know this is a lot to digest, just kind of observationally, but are there any questions? Yes, we have approached each of the coaches, as well as the band directors, as well as our new esports coordinator, the golf coach.
Frank has led with
Frank in robotics has, I think Frank already had some plans drawn up from probably 5 or 6 years ago. But we've also approached each of the entities that would be impacted by this to try to get their input before we finalized anything. But again, we are open for questions and comments and anything you guys might have.
I have a comment.
Yeah.
When I drove in today, I come in off of Laird Avenue. And as I was coming in, I thought to myself, what a great campus. What a great high school campus this really is. I think so anyhow. Maybe I'm a little bit partial. But with the Wellness Center being a part of this campus, it is going to be like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
look at what our children can experience. Look how we have evolved from Harding, our facade, to Harding now. oh my gosh, this is great. I see it nothing but positive.
Good.
Yeah, I just can't stress enough. Our students deserve this.
Yes, they do.
They deserve to have this, all these opportunities.
Yeah. Also, one other item that you may notice that was recently completed, close to the Atlantic side, Atlantic Street side, we have put a cut-through where you can go from the Atlantic Street parking lot. You don't have to go back out onto Atlantic to come back down into the campus. What is that? Is that Paul Warfield? Paul Warfield Way?
Yeah.
So we put a cut-through in there so that, again, for safety services and our own, families and whatnot, our buses, we can kind of loop the campus still, even though we will have that closed during construction. Any other questions?
Just a comment. Kim, you said no one will ever see the bird's eye view. Well, at the first football game, after this is done, the drone will go up, and it will be watched in probably 14 of the 24 time zones, because our tech people can tell us where people are logging in with the live stream. So it will be seen worldwide.
The drones.
So make it look nice.
Okay, that concludes my update. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And that concludes the superintendent's report for this evening.
Wonderful.
And it's only almost 7 o'clock. Board of Education Committee reports. Athletics, please. Mr. Nicholson.
Good evening, everyone. Little recap from spring sports since I've last talked to you. Nevaeh Parisi qualified for state and finished 5th in the long jump at the Ohio State Championships. What an honor. She set a personal high, I believe, of 18 feet. And Anthony Payoblis went down to Cincinnati. The weather was inclement down there. We went indoors, and he had an interesting match in the first round that it went back and forth. Both equal players. The match actually lasted about 2 hours and 20 minutes. A lot of long rallies and everything. And plus, he had a long drive from graduation that night and everything. So he represented us really in a great way, and so proud of this young man. He went to state 3 times out of the 3 chances that he had to. So kudos to him and Nevaeh. Some people may ask, what does the athletic director do in early June? He probably sits in the office and can't wait for football season. A lot of pre-planning goes on. When the construction starts, we're going to have a lot of variables and challenges that I haven't seen in the 8 years here. I've sat down and talked to Steve about some of them. I've met with Mr. Bossel recently. So we're reviewing lots of things with logistics of fan ingress, egress. We're talking about, the parking, security issues. So there's a lot of meetings going on right now trying to figure out, how we're going to do this, that we do it well. We take pride on game nights, on the logistics and the flow that goes in, that it's not chaotic. And I want to continue to make sure that we're having that. So a lot of pre-planning going on, and a lot of meetings in the next few weeks. Gridiron's going to have their Legends meeting at the banquet at the Trumbull Country Club on July 23rd. So if you want to mark your calendars, I believe what they're going to do this year is have 2 former Harding Panther players and 2 former Warren Western Reserve players, along with a coach from each side. And they're going to have, I think, a moderator that's going to talk about the rivalry and what it was like back then, to relive it. You're laughing.
You said moderator, that's why I had to chuckle.
Yeah, Rob Schmidt, I believe, is going to moderate it. And also, we're going to be celebrating the 1972 Warren Western Reserve football team that won the state championship in '72. It's their 50th anniversary. I'm working with Brandon Giovanni right now, putting stuff out on his Facebook and getting some of the members of the team together. We've got a lot of information from them already, so we're ahead of the game. So that will be the Ursuline game, and I believe that's week 5, which is somewhere around the 16th of September. So a lot of good things going on. Any questions? No. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Financial Advisory, Mrs. Doherty.
Nothing to report.
Thank you. Board policies and guidelines, Mrs. Patterson and Mrs. Doherty.
Nothing.
We're good, thank you. Legislative liaison, Mrs. Lamperis or Mr. Walker?
Ms. Lamperos, I'll let you say.
Sure, yeah. Just to bring everybody up to speed, this afternoon, the State Board of Education declined a vote of 10-7 to not appoint a state superintendent, a permanent state superintendent of instruction, as they had hoped to do. So after a year of going back and forth, it looks like they're going back to the drawing table, and hopefully they'll hire some type of consultant firm, perhaps, to help them through this process. So as of right now, we still have the interim that had served prior to the individual that took it and then resigned. So there's a little bit of drama going on down there. And then, of course, everyone knows yesterday was the magic day when the governor signed House Bill 99, which reduced the instructional hours required to carry from 700 hours to 24. So I think, just stay up to date on that. I think we're going to have a little bit more conversation around that.
Anything else?
Oh, that's it.
Okay, thank you.
That's enough.
Mrs. Patterson?
Yes, sir. Actually, the only thing I have to report is that my meeting, our monthly meeting is scheduled for the 23rd of June, so I won't have anything until next month.
Okay, thank you. Under old business, several board members have queried me about the status of school security. So if anyone wishes to speak to that, please feel free. You sort of just did.
Yeah, I sort of just opened that. I mean, does anyone have any comments regarding that? I know.
The only comment I have, I think we're going to have to go back and revisit one of those policies, aren't we, that we just went over?
When Neola sends an update to us, then we will revisit it. Again, we don't make very significant attempt to run around chasing the governor's pen.
Okay.
Or again, I say my SEL approach would be, we'll respond versus react. I'm sure the folks at Neola are trying to internalize exactly what this means. And again, when you look at the legislation, was it signed as an emergency order? If it was, effective immediately, if not 60 days from the date. I don't even know that information with so much swirling around with it. So we'll wait until we get the advisement if policy changes need to take place.
Okay.
Just talking, nothing has changed with us as far as security is concerned. We still allocate money for security SROs with the city. 6 officers, I believe, correct? 2 at Harding, 1 at each building.
Our most recent contract with the city of Warren, it enables us to contract for up to 6 school resource officers. The number of resource officers that we have in the district is a function of the availability of the police department to provide them. And that is varied anywhere from having a full 6 at times to having less than 6. And truly, we are in a situation, I'd say economically, and I don't want to say in our community, but nationally, that things have changed so unpredictably from an economic standpoint that, even in surrounding towns, they pay more for less intense positions. And I think that that's a factor as far as the recruitment and retention of officers that exist. Again, I'm not representative of the city by any means, but that is a factor. We do have our district school safety coordinator, Mr. Bossel, who has his experience coming to us in safety forces, as well as did a little visit to the state to work in the State Safety Center. That's a division of Governor DeWine's Vision for Schools. Spent a little time there as a regional representative and is back with us in the district, and he works to help assist us with the different security aspects. I know I've received several questions. Mr. Copeland, I know you're here with us this evening from the Tribune, and I know Mr. Smith has sent me questions 3 times the last week and a half, and I have zero intention of responding to those questions because I do not respond to specific natures of district security and safety arrangements, nor would I discuss it here to the board. We would do that under executive session as appropriate if we had specifics. But we have consistently maintained excellent security provisions of the district in staying ahead of the technology and getting technology as we speak. You know, one thing that would not be something that would be in our safety plan as a confidential nature is, you guys are looking at me. If you look over on the side wall or in the back corner by the soda machine, there's a blue light. This is in case there ever is a crisis in the building that is activated from a number of places in the building. Because sometimes a cafeteria is loud, sometimes a gym area is loud, sometimes there's areas of the building where you can't hear things. So that's a proactive measure that we used grant money for. That's not, you know, that's not a secret thing. That's not a secure item, but keeps us safe. Graduation, we had graduation at Packard Music Hall. We use the open gate system for all individuals entering Packard Music Hall, except for our band members who, you know, were coming with their instruments. So we gave them an exemption on that. Everyone went through the open gate system, similar to what you're seeing at Ohio State University, similar to what you're seeing at Heinz Field or in Cleveland at the Rocket Mortgage Arena, where it is intended to detect a specific metal device, weaponry based. Again, you guys know, I have some orthopedic issues. I have a plate. I have a titanium hip. I walk through open gate, it doesn't go off. Cell phone doesn't go off. You have a significant, you have a weapon, you have likelihood that is what it's intended to detect. So we have used these systems as appropriate, and we've continued to implore multiple angles. Captain Cole is working the meeting tonight. Anytime he or anyone else has a thought or suggestion, we're all ears. And we work together and strive to provide what we would believe would be as safe of as an environment we can for our students on a day-by-day basis. So I hope I'm answering some of your thoughts or questions, or if you have anything, I mean, if I believe it's appropriate to answer publicly, I will.
Well, I can say what I know. There are 2 classes in this building who have not gone through security drills in this building because of the COVID protocols. And I know that we would all hope that would start again.
We did do that this year.
You were able to do it this year?
Yes, we did them between Thanksgiving and Christmas. We did that across the entire district. Once we had an uplift in COVID numbers, and in the fall, we did practice safety drills across all 5 buildings with school resource officers led by Mr. Bossel, coordinated times, so we could go do that, evaluate, and debrief, which is our system for making sure that everyone on our team gets together once it happens. So we did, correct, Mr. Bossel? All 5 buildings did that either the end of November, beginning of December.
And I know that we would welcome the police using our buildings for drills and training. And I hope that has been expressed to them thoroughly.
Yeah, we have had the openness whenever they have made a request to use a facility. Absolutely, to even include the sheriff's department has had their dive team. They call me and come in whenever, and we try to arrange time for them. So we do that not just with Warren Police. We do that with any of our local law enforcement folks.
And we're very glad to have them here.
Yes.
Do any of the other members have any questions or concerns? Okay, thank you all.
Hey, can I make one final comment?
Of course.
I want to be clear that anytime it comes to the safety, security, and well-being of our students, I want to thank the Board of Education because there has not ever been a price tag put on something. If it's a $5,000 expense or a $50,000 expense or a $100,000 expense, or when we're funding 6 officers at a time for their salaries, It's never been an issue. That money has always been available, whether it comes through grants, whether it comes through general fund, whether it comes from whatever safety and security provisions. The health, safety, and well-being of our students, physical, mental, and otherwise, has always been a priority for the Board of Education since I've been sitting here, and I want to thank you, because that's important to not ever have to worry about.
Our children are priceless.
Thank you. We move on to Treasurer's recommendations. Mrs. Lamperos. Page 4.
Treasurer's recommendations, minutes. It is recommended the resolution listed below regarding the May 2022 board minutes be approved as submitted.
Second.
Mrs. Scortino, would you please call the roll?
Mrs. Lamperos?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mrs. Patterson?
Yes.
Mrs. Doherty?
Yes.
Mr. Fowley?
Yes, and the motion carries. On page 5, Mrs. Doherty.
Monthly financial statement. It is recommended the resolution listed below regarding the May 2022 financial statement and short-term investments made by the treasurer during the May 2022 Exhibit A, pages 36 through 37, be approved as submitted.
Second.
Mrs. Scortino, the roll, please.
Mrs. Doherty?
Yes.
Mrs. Patterson?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mrs. Lamperos?
Yes.
Mr. Fowley?
Yes, and the motion carries. On page 7, Mr. Walker, please.
Superintendent's recommendations, agreements, contracts, and/or leases. It is recommended the resolution listed below entering into agreements, contracts, and/or leases A through E be approved as submitted.
Second.
Mrs. Scortino, please call the roll.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mrs. Doherty?
Yes.
Mrs. Patterson?
Yes.
Mrs. Lamperos?
Yes.
And Mr. Fowley?
Yes. On page 9, item 1, which I believe needs to be read in its entirety.
No.
Mrs.
No, it doesn't.
What?
It doesn't.
It doesn't? Okay.
Just the beginning.
Nope.
All right. Then that goes to Mrs. Lamperos.
Approving construction documents and authorizing the commencement of bidding, including the advertisement for bids for site work related to the Recreation and Wellness Center. It is recommended the resolution listed below regarding approving construction documents and authorizing the commencement of bidding, including the advertisement for bids for site work related to the Recreation and Wellness Center, be approved as submitted.
Second.
Will the treasurer please call the roll?
Mrs. Lamperos?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mrs. Doherty?
Yes.
Mrs. Patterson?
Yes.
Mr. Fowley?
Yes, and the motion carries. On page 11, item 3, Mrs. Doherty.
Ohio Department of Education certification for Ohio Teachers Evaluation System and Ohio Principal Evaluation System. It is recommended the resolution listed below regarding the Ohio Department of Education certification for credentialed Ohio Teachers Evaluation System and Ohio Principals Evaluation Evaluators be approved as submitted.
Second.
Will the treasurer please call the roll?
Mrs. Doherty?
Yes.
Mrs. Lamperos?
Yes.
Mrs. Patterson?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Fowley?
Yes, and the motion carries. On page 12, Mrs. Patterson, acceptance of gifts.
Acceptance of gifts. It is recommended the resolution listed below regarding acceptance of gifts be approved as submitted. Benefactors are Lazy Boy Furniture for the art department, poster boards and fabric swatches, estimated value $1,000. Ohio Living Lake Vista, Cortland, Ohio for Lincoln Pre-K through 8 school, a monetary value of $30.
Second.
Mrs. Scortino, would you please call the roll?
Mrs. Patterson?
Yes.
Mrs. Lamperos?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mrs. Doherty?
Yes.
Mr. Fowley?
Yes, and the motion carries.
Thank you all for your gifts.
Thank you for your gifts.
Yes, we thank our benefactors every week, and at every meeting, there are items on that part of the agenda.
Yeah.
Page 13, item 5, Mr. Walker.
Tuition reimbursement. It is recommended the resolution listed below for tuition reimbursement be approved as submitted.
Second.
Would the treasurer please call the roll?
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mrs. Patterson?
Yes.
Mrs. Lamperos?
Yes.
Mrs. Doherty?
Yes.
And Mr. Fowley?
Yes. On page 14 and continuing on at length, personnel recommendations. Mrs. Lamperos.
Yes, personnel recommendations. It is recommended the resolution listed below regarding personnel items A through P be approved as submitted, and that will take you to page 32. And we have classified retirements on page 24. There are 3 of them. Thomas Holbrook, Janice Losi, and Terry McCoy. I'd just like to thank them for their years of service to the school district.
I second.
Would the treasurer please call the roll?
Mrs. Lamperos?
Yes.
Mrs. Patterson?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Abstain.
Mrs. Doherty?
Yes.
And Mr. Fowley?
Yes. And the motion carries. So many pages. Board recommendations. Mrs. Patterson, please.
Board's recommendations. Resolution to specify the Warren City School District's intent not to provide career technical education to students enrolled in grades 7 and 8 for the 2022-2023 school year. It is recommended the resolution listed below for the district's intent not to provide career technical education to students enrolled in grades 7 and 8 for school year 2022-2023 school year, be approved as submitted.
Second.
Mrs. Scortino, would you please call the roll?
Mrs. Patterson?
Yes.
Mrs. Lamperos?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mrs. Doherty?
Yes.
And Mr. Fowley?
Yes, and the motion carries. On page 34, item 2, Mr. Walker, please.
Addendum to Treasurer's Employment Contract. Whereas the Board of Education of the Warren City School District, hereinafter the Board, and Karen M. Scortino, hereinafter the Treasurer, are parties to an employment contract effective August 1st, 2022. And whereas the Board of, do I need to read the next one too? And whereas the Board and the Treasurer desire to amend the Treasurer's employment contract concerning performance and compensation. Oh, I'm tired. You didn't say that. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board agrees to amend the employment contract for Karen M. Sortino for the term beginning August 1st, 2022 and extending through July 31st, 2027. And be it further resolved that the Board President is authorized and directed to execute an addendum to the contract of employment with Ms. Sortino on behalf of the Warren City School District Board of Education upon such terms and conditions as agreed and as may be required to bring about the legal effect of the terms of this resolution. And be it finally resolved that it is hereby found and determined that all formal actions of this board concerning or related to the adoption of this resolution were adopted in an open meeting of the board in compliance with all legal requirements, including section 121.22 of the Ohio Revised Code.
Second.
Mrs. Scortino, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mrs. Patterson?
Yes.
Mrs. Lamperos?
Yes.
Mrs. Doherty?
Yes.
And Mr. Fowley?
Yes, and the motion carries.
Sorry about that.
Mr. Shiro, has anyone signed up for public participation?
No one signed up prior to the meeting.
Thank you. Executive session. Under the provisions of Ohio Revised Code 121.22, the Warren City Board of Education recessed to executive session at 7:20 p.m. to discuss A, consideration of appointment, employment, promotion, etc. of public employees, in specific, the evaluation of our superintendent and treasurer, and F, matters required to be kept confidential by state or federal law.
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Scortino, would you please call the roll?
Mrs. Lamperos?
Yes.
Mrs. Patterson?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mrs. Doherty?
Yes.
And Mr. Fowley?
Yes. Thank you all for coming. There will be no action taken after the executive session.
Thank you. To be left here.
Okay.
I don't know.